I hope everyone's having a fantastic spooky season. I decided to do this video in costume because the person we're talking about today not only looks like Samara, but they say if you talk about her, your channel dies in 7 days. I feel as though I did not scrutinize this person nearly enough when I initially covered the Saber situation from a few months ago, so allow me to correct that mistake. The YouTuber ilovekimpossiblealot, also known as KP, finds herself falling down in a Shirian stairwell of her own making. We will first begin by looking at her response to the backlash she received, talking more about the behind-the-scenes info, and I want to talk a little bit about how she's been abusing the copyright system. So without further ado, let's play the intro and begin. September 23rd of this year, 2025, ilovekimpossiblealot had uploaded a video titled Let's Talk. The first thing immediately apparent in this video is KP's avatar art looks different. In fact, the entire scene looks different. And not only that, it is of a lower resolution than what the final video project is playing at. Many people had been quick to assume that this was a low-quality AI image that KP had generated, but the truth is far sadder than what people could have expected. The drawing of a sad KP sitting lonely at the table initially had another character in there, the character of the person who actually drew the piece. We know this because Mr. Enter had speculated that the image was AI, and the friend of the person who had originally drawn the image came forward with not only the unedited photo featuring both OCs, but also a time-lapse replay from the Procreate app showing that her friend did in fact not use AI to create this. Well, if this image was created for KP initially, then why did she have to use this low-res rip, and why did she have to edit out the person who made the art's OC from the piece? This is because, according to the person going by Twilight Guardian on Twitter, their friend no longer gave permission for KP to use this art. Their friend had a falling out with KP, and KP is using this without that person's permission. Not only that, but this artwork was originally a video asset for a collaboration that never occurred between the two individuals. KP states that her video was supposed to be about calling out problematic community behaviors, internet safety, especially when it comes to kids, as she puts it, and her own experiences with other content creators in the past. I would say that that is a subpar description of KP's video on DA games and Saber. It was framed as a call out of several creators, and it was portrayed as that as it was being hyped up on Twitter. In fact, as KP sought out voices to collaborate in this video, she advertised it as a call out against sexual predators and sex pests. The only thing relevant to her own experiences was somebody once made an incredibly distasteful joke at her expense. She states that the purpose of her video was to discuss the online activities of Will Ryan and Chris Aficionados, two associates of DA Games, and another YouTuber, Steven from Saber. It is at this point I have to bring up that Steven still feels just as tacked on with her recap of the situation as he did in the video itself. Though you'd be hard-pressed to verify if the video was what she claims it was, because she's struck every single archived copy of it from YouTube. She shows a bunch of screenshots that don't really have any context and have print that's far too small for me to read personally, I guess as evidence against Will Ryan and Chris Aficionados. I'll be real, when I initially covered this whole situation, I kind of ignored all the segments that weren't about Saber because I just didn't care that much. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of yikesy pictures there. I wish I could know who said what or who was posting what or what the fuck is going on in these screenshots, but I mean, you can't even get your avatar's resolution correct, so, you know, what the fuck am I expecting, right? Which one of your unpaid editors cobbled this shit together, KP? Because, I think you gotta throw them back in the pit for a little bit longer until they learn their lesson. It rubs the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again. KP claims that the issue with her video was her platform was not set up in order to discuss such heavy topics. She doesn't admit to the fact that the allegations against Saberspark were found to be false. She also doesn't acknowledge the fact that she did not verify the claims before platforming them. No, of course, the only issue is her platform is too unserious for such a discussion. I am inclined to agree with you, KP. I think you as a person are too lazy to be covering these kinds of topics. In fact, I really don't think a lot of these things should be handled by social media influencers in the first place. This is clearly something that, if it were real, would have required legal action and not the self-anointed Jon Stewart of YouTube making a Sonic pissing on the moon joke. Then again, I don't think your distastefulness in that video is the core of your problem. I don't think someone like you deserves a platform. After everything that's come out, after your abuse of a copyright system, after finding out that you don't pay the people who build your videos from the ground up, not only not paying them, but harassing their families. If you were 2 decades younger, I am sure that Leo Convoy would be trying to adopt you. She states that the jokes in her original video were meant to be only at the expense of her own trauma. Now, unfortunately, I have no footage to back this up, but I remember KP's video having a cutaway gag every 30 seconds, so I know statistically speaking that's impossible to be true. I think in my first video covering this, I had deduced that she made 9 non sequitur jokes within the first 3.5 minutes of her video, but that's only if you include the 1.5-minute YouTube premiere countdown. Definitely not clout chasey. But regardless of if KP is making jokes at her own experiences or not, the allegations she was covering in this expose were not her experiences for the most part. Again, there was that former unpaid editor of hers that told a wildly inappropriate joke to people behind her back. However, the bulk of the story here was in fact Emo Emmy accusing Saberspark of sexual misconduct. In this Let's Talk video, KP just decimates Courtney by throwing her directly in front of the bus, getting in the driver's seat, and running over the bitch. A lot of people have been harping on KP's choice of words, saying that she's cutting public ties with Courtney Pete, but I don't think this is KP being clever, using politician speech to say she's still chill with Courtney on the down low. I think KP's just too stupid to know what public ties means. Like, straight up, I think this bitch was riffing and just trying to sound smart by increasing the word count, which I know is rich coming from me of all people, but let's be real here. I mean, knowing everything we know about Courtney, would she let this kind of slight happen and still be chill with the person behind the scenes? I don't think so. I think KP just said a string of words to try to sound professional and just ended up sounding fucking sus. KP begins to try to explain what her intentions were for the extremely disconnected video she originally uploaded. The through line connecting all the people in this video is that Saberspark employs Chris Aficionado, who is also employed by Will Ryan of DA Games. KP states that Chris Aficionado and Will Ryan post not safe for work images on Discord alongside racist and anti-Semitic content. However, it is cropped in a way where there is very little context to go off of as to what's even going on. A lot of the examples I see of the racist jokes posted by Aficionado's Chris come from 2016 to 2018, which isn't to excuse this kind of behavior. However, the internet was a different place back then, and let's be honest, people do have the capacity to grow and change. I say this mainly because if there were modern examples of Chris or Will using this kind of humor, I think it would lend more credence to there being smoke and fire. However, having to go back a decade to prove claims feels unsubstantial as evidence without anything modern to back this up as being a continued behavior. KP states that the DA Games server had kids as young as 11 in it with these posts, and the screenshot she shows actually does make me kind of want to know more about what the fuck is going on here, because this isn't a good look. But again, it's cropped so there's very little context. The screenshot itself reads, "By the way, I'm 11, XD, you're fine though, ... I'm 2 years older. Lel. But see, I called your age out higher. You'd think that kinda stands out as older than your age, right?" Suffice it to say, I don't know what context would be needed to make this not creepy, but this on its own is very fucking creepy. It's just a shame that in KP's original video, I couldn't parse what the fuck was happening with the DA game situation at all, because the amount of jokes actively disrupted the flow of information, so it was really hard to track what she was trying to claim. I'd be interested to see someone take the same info that KP used in her video and try to make the DA games arguments again without the meme compilation attached. KP continues to rapidly put screenshots on screen, sometimes with text in her video covering the screenshots, and it's formatted so poorly that it's just really hard to tell what these screenshots show. If she wanted to relitigate the things that she said in her original video about DA games, then I think she should have waited to make a dedicated video on it if she really felt like she had to. Though personally, I think she should let go of this, as she's already fumbled this situation so hard. She is credited with destroying the credibility of the case against DA Games. And by rapid fire posting all of these screenshots as your evidence within a few short seconds and not elaborating on any of them, and cropping out context, make people even less inclined to trust the things that you are saying. And that's purely because of how suspicious you're acting around all of this. Now, how we get to all of this connecting to Saber is that because Steven employs Chris Aficionado, who is also employed by someone who KP is accusing of behaving inappropriately in a Discord server full of minors, and how Chris, according to KP, bragged about a literal sex crime, that Steven was under some obligation to fire Chris. However, she says that the only thing Saber did in response was brush off what Chris said as a joke. Now listen, we already know that Chris didn't actually faceplant into KP's underwear after fainting from shitting too hard or whatever the fuck the story was, right? But even then, KP admits that she knows that that never actually occurred. However, she continues to try to frame this as something that had actually occurred in reality. She frames things in the most dishonest ways possible, using some of the most sus tactics, and, she wonders why people don't like her. KP asks why everyone was giving Saber leeway, especially when he had lapses in his memory that were contradicted by evidence that proved that he did not know the timeline of events perfectly. This is despite the fact that she knows very well the only way we know there are these contradictions in his memory is from the archived evidence he provided. I mean, yeah, we're gonna be more inclined to believe Saber even when he gets a few dates wrong, because the only reason we even know he got those dates wrong was from his own fucking evidence. Are you fucking kidding me? Emu Emmy made a ton of claims, but she couldn't substantiate any of them. Meanwhile, Saber could actively refute a lot of her claims with the direct archives of his messages with her. She claimed she broke ties with him, when in reality he ghosted her after she tried to baby trap him. She claimed they had no prior sexual interest in each other before the con. In reality, we see that these two had not only discussed it prior to their first encounter at the convention, but Saber Stark had continuously gone back to check in with Emu Emmy to reaffirm and reconnect to make sure that this situationship they had was something they both enjoyed and both wanted to continue to do. This is like the most textbook example of getting enthusiastic consent there is. Like, he asked before the event happened, and then he went back and asked how his performance was. He wanted a fucking performance review. I mean, that's really pathetic, but it's really sweet. And what we really see is that Emu Emmy fucking said she enjoyed her time at the con with Steven. I know you can revoke consent at any time while it's happening, but I draw the line at saying you can revoke consent after something had already happened. But you know what I do find to be a violation of consent? Telling someone you have an IUD when you don't. KP is outraged that people aren't more upset that Steven demanded that someone takes a pregnancy test. You know, because he was worried that he'd have to father a kid for the next 18 years, but don't think about that part. During her accountability speech, she starts slurring her words quite severely, parts of which at times get quite comical. For example, she says, "A lot of people took her lack of response to mean a lack of accountability, that she was ignoring the controversy and trying to erase or ignore it. Something that she'd like to invite her audience to think about is what accountability is, what it looks like, and what it isn't." She also states, "True accountability is stating whether or not you did something on its face, regardless of any intentions or effect, and without accusing or attacking the other individual." Now, does KP take accountability in this video? No. She states that the original video was bad, doesn't clarify on how her video was bad, and then points at everyone who criticized her and said, "But you all were sexist." KP over on the plantation as her like teenage video editors are like carrying her in on one of those fucking thrones with the handrails on them. "I might have platformed false rape accusations on my slave labor YouTube channel, but you are sexist." She's calling everyone else bad because people called her clout chasing, but again, your video was fucking clout chasing. I can't find it right now, but I swear to God, she had a picture of like her pony Sona, like as Moses on the mount with the 10 commandments and her fucking hoof, like hyping up this fucking exposed video on Saber Sparks. Jesus Christ. How can you say involving all of these different content creators to voice lines for you is anything other than fucking clout chasing? Dude, you're pulling in your whole fucking network on this one project. What the fuck else is this? KP is trying to say that her opposition is using obfuscation in defense. The lack of self-awareness displayed by KP in this instance is, well, it illustrates a very interesting portrait of her mind. Then, as all YouTube apologies or Let's Talk videos do, she puts her dog up on screen so that everyone can forget all of the horrific things that she didn't take accountability for and just be happy there's a dog on screen. As a person cat myself, the dog doesn't really change my point of view of KP at all. Cool dog, but you're still a bitch. I, of course, am by no means the only one who took issue with this video. Many people voiced their concerns. Some people who had even been a part of the initial investigation into the Saber Spark situation, such as Mr. Enter and Cope and Seethe. And this is where we get into KP stepping on rakes. The YouTube channel Cope and Seethe did a live stream in which he found the original transcript of the rough draft of the DA games call-out that KP was initially going to record. He then read it on stream in order to criticize it. Other channels, notably Auntblock and Hidden Heroine, had both reacted to this. KP then issued copyright strikes, 5 against Beckett, and 1 for everyone who had reacted to the Cope and Seethe livestream reading out her rough draft. Fair use protects individuals from reading out transcripts in order to criticize them. That's one of the main points of fair use, is to critique media. These are clearly false copyright strikes, and they are intended to shut down the channels of her critics. Now, I don't know what the end game goal is with that, because if she's successful in getting her critics' channels deleted off the internet, the public's already negative perception of her is going to increase. And I think that's where I'm going to end things tonight. However, I do have more to say about KP. Perhaps for a future video. Until then, my name's Undead. 7 days. Broken pieces, we fall apart and you say, stay with me, broken dreams, and we drift apart, but you say, stay with me.